Okay, so having looked at the Malay world and the Philippines, we're going to head now over to the mainland and to the place that is now known as Myanmar, but historically was known as Burma. So in some places in Southeast Asia, just as in other parts of the world, there are some place names today that are different from what they used to be. And that's because there are a bunch of place names for different places in the world that were created during colonial times, by colonial authorities, and in the post-colonial era, people have changed those names to try to kind of erase that colonial memory. So places like Mumbai in India, used to be Bombay, now it's Mumbai. Burma used to be Burma, and now it's Myanmar. Since this is, of course, about history, and we're talking about the past, however, I will tend to use the terms that were used in the periods in the past that we're talking about. So the place we want to look at today is a place that's today called Myanmar, but I'm going to be calling it Burma for the most part. So Burma is a very complex and diverse place, diverse in physical geography and in human terms as well. If you go to Burma today, one of the places you might arrive at is Rangoon in the south, a place that's now called Yangon. And the area around there is basically a kind of tropical or semi-tropical area. If you then head northward, you'll head into a plains area that is very arid, very dry. If you head then further to the northeast, you head into a kind of a lush area where there's this big lake inlay, there's mountains around it as well. There are then mountains basically doing a kind of semicircle around the northern half of Burma as well. And so you have these different areas of kind of tropical regions, arid, dry plains, kind of a lake area, mountainous regions. And the human geography in many ways has matched, historically has matched this physical diversity. Did that make any sense? In that tropical area down in the south, that was historically the home of a distinct group of people known as the Mon. They didn't live just in the southern part of Burma, but they also historically lived in areas of what is now Thailand. Weird stuff's happening again. And they speak a language, Mon, which is part of a larger language family that we refer to as Mon Khmer. As the people who live in Cambodia, the Khmer, their language is also part of this language family. So in the southern part of Burma, historically, you had a distinct group of people, the Mon, living there. Then in that kind of drier plains area to the north, roughly over 1,000 years ago, there was a group that migrated into that region from areas further to the north, the Burmans. So things get a little confusing with Burma because you've got a country called Burma, you've got this term Burman that refers to an ethnic group, but then you've also got this term Burmese, which can refer to the ethnic group, it can refer to everyone within the borders of Burma, and that's where things get a little confusing. I'll try to use the term Burman when I'm specifically referring to this main ethnic group in Burma. The Burmans speak a language, Burmese, that's different from Mon, the language of the people who are historically in the south. Burmese is a Tibeto-Burman language, a member of a distinct language family. And like I said, speakers of this language, it's believed, migrated southward from an area further to the north, sort of in like the Tibeto plateau, and roughly over 1,000 years ago had arrived in the area of what is today the northern half of Burma, where they established a society, something we'll look at in the next lecture, the next video. Then that lake area in the northeast, That is an area where another distinct group of people have historically lived, a people known as the Shan. The Shan speak a language that's part of a language family called Thai. And this is where things get even more confusing than Burman Burmese, because there's also an ethnic group called the Thai who also speak Thai, which is a Thai language. And the reason why that's confusing is because there are different Thais going on here. There's a big language family that encompasses the Thai of Thailand, the Lao spoken in Laos, and the Shan spoken in Burma, that we refer to as TAI Thai languages, whereas the language spoken officially in Thailand today is THAI, a sub-language of this larger TAI Thai language family. So Shan is a TAI Thai language and is close to languages like Lao, or a language spoken in northern Thailand. Historically, they are part of a group of people that also migrated southward into parts of Burma, areas of what is today Thailand, as well as Laos, probably from an original area somewhere around, say, Guangxi province in what is today Thailand. And there are speakers in Vietnam as well. So that's some big time ethnic and linguistic diversity in this world of Burma, which is physically diverse as well, as you've got right there 4 major language families represented in this space. But it gets more complex than that, because in the mountainous regions that surround much of Burma, you have yet more ethnic groups who speak yet more languages. For instance, in the area between what is today Burma and Thailand is an area where a group known as the Karen have historically lived. And if you've been keeping up on your Rambo movies, you know that in the last one, Rambo defended the Karen and spent like the last, 40 minutes of the movie doing what Rambo can do oh so well, which is... Good job, Rambo. So yeah, the Karen are one important group in the kind of border areas of Burma. If you head across the south to, let's see, the border area of what is today Burma or Myanmar and Bangladesh, is an area where historically there was a separate kingdom called Arakan. Arakan has a long, fascinating history of its own. It's on the Indian Ocean. It's been in contact with India, both its Hindu and Muslim variants, the Middle East. It's a fascinating place. And historically, it's been home to a people that we refer to as the Arakanese. More recently, that part of Burma has been in the news because it's a place where another group of people that we refer to as the Rohingya come from. And they've been in the news for tragic reasons, and they themselves, their history is one that people contest. They themselves say that they've always been from that area. The government of Myanmar claims that they're not, that they're outsiders, and it's a tragic situation that continues to unfold in the present. But historically, this is an area that has also been distinct from the area of the Burmans and the Mons, and of course the Shan as well. So the Karen on one side, the Arakanese on the other, then you have this kind of semicircle of mountains that encircles the northern half of Burma, where there's a whole bunch of different ethnic groups that go by a variety of different names. Some of the names that have been used historically are not used today. They've changed or adapted. But you've got, let's see, what do we got out there? Oh yeah, you've got like, and some of these names are names and some are like subgroups of others. There are people like the Chin, the Kaku, the Lisu, the Yayin or the Lisu Yayin, Kachin, Padang, Chinbok. As those images indicate, historically, these are all people who, had distinct cultures, spoke distinct languages, or some of them may be close to each other, but nonetheless identifiable languages, and made up what's really a kind of ethnic and linguistic mosaic that today is within the boundaries of the modern nation state of Myanmar, but historically was part of this very diverse world. So that situation existed for centuries. But then in the 19th century, as Burma came to fall under British colonial rule, something that we will look at in more detail later, there are many, many people from the Indian subcontinent who arrived. And there's always been, interaction with China, but a lot of Chinese arrived in places like the south, in Rangoon at that time. And so today, if you visit a place like Rangoon, you can find, these communities still there. There are Indian communities. There's a Chinese area of Rangoon. And you've just got all kinds of, and then you have just all kinds of, and you've just got all kinds of in-between diversity.
Huh?
It's a very cosmopolitan, fascinating place. And that's in many ways the product of the colonial counter, something we'll look at in a future video. In any case, Burma is a place that takes a little bit of time to talk about first, simply because it's so diverse and complex. You've got different parts of the country or the historical land. You've got different peoples, different languages. It's a very diverse place. We got diverse sounds coming in here now, and we'll start to look at the history of some of these places in the next video.